You can find divers and places to dive in all corners of the globe. That is, unless you're one of these round earthers who doesn't believe the world has corners. The world's surface is pretty much 70% water, and it's got underground diving too, inland on top of that. So there's never an excuse that there isn't any diving nearby. But there are some reasons not to go diving though, to be honest. As awesome as scuba diving is, you should never take it lightly, and you can hurt yourself quite badly if something happens in the water. So, hi, I'm Mark from Simply Scuba, and I'll try to make this as funny as possible, but this is you should never go diving when... Do you want scuba diving?
No.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. I'll just put it in the title, doesn't it?
Yeah. You've recently had a glass of the house red. When I was diving with a friend out in Egypt, the night before, he decided to have a glass of the house red wine, which, needless to say, wasn't the best. It did, however, stick with him all the way until we were out in the water. Then it really wanted out violently. That being bad enough, he was also on a rebreather at the time. So when he needed to purge underwater, it's not as easy on a CCR, as you have to close the loop and reopen it to take the mouthpiece out. Otherwise, that wine just kind of recirculates back to you in a few seconds and floods your scrubber with warm wine. That spent the night inside you. Yeah. Your rental gear looks like it's seen more seasons than you have, or none at all. Rental gear is made to be tough and cheap, so the dive centre can afford a whole range of it. But that doesn't mean that it lasts forever. Now, I won't mention the place, but you have to use their regulators to dive there. And these things get used by a new diver every hour on the hour every day. So they're pretty knackered much faster than a usual set of rigs. The rubber hoses on the regs I had were flaking, and it turns out that the exhaust valve was knackered too. And I only found that out when I looked upwards. 30 meters down, and my second stage filled with water. Luckily, my airway control is on point, but the next diver may have choked. I also had a brand new rental dry suit up in Norway. Great! That is until you put it on and the brand new latex seal tried to kill me. Most dry suit divers stretch their neck seals overnight at least. This one had no such treatment. You haven't checked your kit. I'll be the first to admit that I don't check my tyres or oil levels in my car before every journey, but I will always check my own scuba kit right before a dive, because it's so easy just to throw everything on and jump in only to realise that your air isn't turned on, so you only really have, 3 breaths. Every part of your kit needs to be looked over before every dive, from every O-ring on your regulator to the fin strap on your fins. If an O-ring fails during the dive, you're gonna have a bad day. If a fin strap breaks during the dive, you're also going to have a bad day. I used to avoid asking divers about their kit because I didn't want to be, that guy. Until the diver I was following on a dive had an O-ring blow on his swivel joint that 10 minutes before I'd almost asked when the last time he tightened it up was. We both ascended fine, nobody was hurt, but it all could have been avoided with one simple question, and if something is going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong at the worst possible time. You're not qualified or experienced enough. Everything about scuba diving is pushing your limits and boundaries. I mean, you are literally going where humans are not made to go, but you need to know your limits.
Unless you're Jason Statham, he can go anywhere.
He has no limits. Going down too deep is probably the easiest, but whilst we do teach you a lot during your open water course, we often don't teach you about partial pressures and other complexities about going down deeper. If you're not paying attention, you can drift down pretty far without noticing it. And the first thing that will happen is that you use your air much faster than you're used to. Another problem can be that you can't simply ascend straight to the surface, so you better have enough air to get you there. Swimming into wrecks and caves without proper training is pretty dangerous too. It's super easy to get turned around, and no matter how good your sense of direction is, Trust me, you will get lost if you're not careful. We actually have dedicated procedures and equipment for navigating overhead environments safely. But if you're not qualified or if you haven't been trained yet, then there's no shame at all in backing out. The dive center or professionals look or feel, sketchy. There was a TV advert a while back with a guy deciding between two shark diving cages on holiday. The expensive one that looked the part or the cheap ropey looking cage that was just falling apart. The joke was that he went with the sketchy cage because it was cheaper. But you'll also find sketchy dive centers around the world that are best left alone. If they can't organise their paperwork or equipment, or they give you gear that, well, hey, that'll do, just get out of there. If they can't organise paperwork or properly fitting gear, then would you trust them to get you out of a tight spot and into a chamber efficiently?
Why not?
Yeah, what's the worst that could happen?
Exactly.
You're feeling sick. Computer algorithms don't take illness into account, and there is plenty of research that has found that the more worn down you are, the less efficient your decompression is. So whilst your dive computer may think and say that everything is fine, you can be well beyond the line and actually hurt yourself. Medications may make you feel better, but I'll bet you anything pretty few of them have actually been tested under pressure, so the pharmaceutical companies have no idea how the drugs will act at any depth. Medications also wear off, so it's best to just avoid the situation completely. Congestion is one of the worst. If you have the sniffles, then that mucus filling up your sinuses and air spaces inside your head will shift around during the dive and create nasty air pockets that trap air as you ascend. That is a reverse block that your dive instructor warned you about. You don't have a buddy.
In real life.
The world's smallest violin starts playing. Never dive alone. That's one of the golden rules that should have been drilled into your head from your first day. Even those with a solo diver certification will still dive in a pair or a team, because every other diver in the water with you is an extra air source and pair of hands to get you out of trouble. The internet is full of horrible stories of divers cleaning their pools or the undersides of their boats by themselves and getting stuck, only to be found too late and the worst has happened. Diving in a threesome is a similar way to get separated. If you thought losing your one and only buddy is easy, then trust me, losing both buddies when diving in a three is far easier. As they swim off together, they'll look around and see one of their buddies and continue with the diving, leaving you to fend for yourself wherever you've stopped to take a picture. You aren't happy. If you're not 100% happy with the conditions, the dive plan, or anything, then there is no shame in not jumping in. And if anybody gives you any grief, just send them my way.
I'm so scared.
Jumping in when you're unsure about something actually makes you a liability in the water, not only risking your well-being but others too. Every person in the water acts as backup for everybody else, so if one link in the chain isn't working properly, then any strain will break it. It's always better to dive another day if you're not feeling happy about everything. So what other reasons should you never go diving? Let's educate other divers in the forum below. Thanks for watching, guys, and safe diving.
Forum?
I don't know. We are an online dive store serving the UK and the world for all your diving equipment needs. So why not visit us at simplyscuba.com or click the box on your screen.